How are you? Good. How you doing, Greg? Not bad. Sleep by the bell. Okay. That's it. They were really excited that they
Okay, it's 5:30. We have Councilman Calvin, I believe that he is on the way, so we will go ahead and hold the councilman.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, all right, thanks.
2 minutes, okay. Okay, we can go ahead with, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted by the entrance to the council chambers and is available for public review if anybody wants to go look at it. Today we have the invitation. With our councilman Reed.
Okay. Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the day. We thank you for everything that you've given to us, Lord. Truly you have blessed this community. But tonight I come with a special request, Lord. I ask, Lord, that you guide and direct us, Lord, as we go about our business. Help us to make the right decisions for the citizens of McCook, Lord. Keep them in mind that we are their stewards, and what we do reflects on everybody else. And we ask it in your name and for your glory. Amen.
Amen.
Let's do the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call this meeting to order. Individuals who have appropriate items for the city council consideration should complete the topic for consideration for city council agenda. It's a form that's located at the information table at the entrance to the council chambers. If the issue can be handled administratively without council action, notification will be provided. If the item is scheduled for a meeting, notification of the date will be given. Do we have any announcements or recognitions tonight?
I just want to note we're going to have a planning commission meeting next Monday at 5:15. We will be continuing our review of the zoning ordinance, and then also we've got a special exception request that we're taking us. And then I'd also like to go ahead and give Kyle Potoff an opportunity to go ahead and speak here really quickly as well too.
I just have a couple announcements. The first announcement I'd like to make this evening is I would like to stress the city's condolences to Rick Kinney, one of our employees out in the solid waste department. His wife unexpectedly passed away yesterday. So we'd like to send condolences out to him, their children, and the entire family of Lynn Kinney. So I want to pass that on. The other thing I wanted to announce is you probably have seen the city of McCook was awarded a community forestry infrastructure tree grant from Plant Nebraska in the amount of $300,000. Those funds will be used to remove and replace approximately 80 trees. In McCook, we will be using our tree inventory report that was done in 2022, as well as doing a matrix for each tree that is identified to pick the ones that are at most risk. I would like to thank Bruce Hoffman, our local arborist, Ashley Cito, Jessica Bortner, our grant writer, Tyler Kalinsky, Ron Maris, and Clayton Stevens from the Public Works Department for working so hard on this grant and making it a success. So the work will be done here shortly with some paperwork, and then hopefully we'll have 2 years to complete the project. But we're very fortunate to get that, and we'll see some results here soon. So.
Thank you.
Thank
work on that. Okay, next item on the agenda is a presentation from Miller and Associates on details outlining the EPA's mandated lead service line inventory and replacement as well as funding options. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, this is one of the most controversial regulations that have been out since about the lead and copper compared to arsenic and uranium in about the 2000s. So if you guys have been to Daniel's meetings at the LEAD conference or anything, you know this has been quite a topic for everybody, and it's going to be fun the next couple of years. So we're going to talk about lead service line replacements, and that is when we're getting rid of the line from the main to the home, and what that means compared to what the regulations actually have been. So this is not new. The lead service line is lead and copper rule, but it was originally proposed in the Safe Drinking Water Act in '74. They went through and modified it for the lead contamination control in '88. And we actually stopped using lead about 1986 is when it actually went into compliance. We stopped using lead on most things. There was some part of lead that still be there, but it was a small fraction. The lead and copper rule then, the LCR, you'll love all the acronyms, I know everybody enjoys all these, but the lead and copper rule was modified then in 1991. And then we had the lead and copper rule revisions, which is what triggered all of this in 2021. Then they came back again and amended it in 2023, and that's where we're at today. And that rule has been protested by people, EPA is being sued, so they won't even release what they really interpret the rule to be because they don't want that used against them in any litigation. So we are all left to kind of flounder for a little bit, but they've done a few things to try and help us out. The Nebraska Drinking Water SRF, which is a Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, received, the last bullet here, about $160 million to date to address lead service lines. So they realized that the lead service line replacement is a public health issue. If you have lead in the lines, we want to get rid of it. So the drinking water program in Nebraska said, we'll make this a priority, and we're gonna use the $160 million to help fix these communities. A lot of these are not gonna be on public water systems. They're gonna be the private part of the line, and that's been the huge controversy of this, is why are we working off our property? And I'll explain that a little bit better, but the drinking water is gonna allow us to do that, and they will give us grant money to do that, basically. So the $160 million that's out there right now, that they have been awarded, it's a first come, first served basis. You sign up, you sign a contract, you have to spend that money by 2034. And if you don't, if you're behind schedule or you don't do it, they're gonna actually have in their closet take some of that back. So whatever you can't get spent, they're gonna take it back and give it to somebody that can. Because there's another deadline in 2037 where everybody in the United States has to have all their lead removed by 2037, according to this rule, from what we can tell. But there's about 93 million of that already spoken for. So there's about 70 million, give or take, left of the money the state's gonna get. Now, it could be in 2034 they reallocate more money to the state, but we don't know that, and we won't know that until 2034 is the earliest. The estimated demand, so we had to do some paperwork. We filed, every community was required to file paperwork to record how much lead they have or what they think they may have lead or if it's unknown. And there's at least $250 million that we can tell for sure that is needed. So this is even short. So the reason that some of these discussions are being held now is if you want to get into this, it's first come, first served. You do not have to do this. So we'll talk about it is not a required program. The other thing I want to make really clear is this is not a water supply issue. So you see in red, I put it up there so everybody knows, the lead is not coming from our source. It is coming from things like plumbing and fixtures and those type of things. They had lead goosenecks, again, those were mainly in the 40s, but they're still out there and we have some, we found some. There's lead service lines, that actually the line coming all in is pure lead. And there's a few of those out there. But if you have something downstream, if you have a lead gooseneck, let's say that comes off the main, and then you have galvanized pipe, it will absorb that lead as it leaches off. So then you have to replace that. So I'll get into that, but just so everybody knows, it's not from our source. This is actually from distribution that's causing this issue, okay? So here's the interesting part about this. This is the most controversial part of the rule is, if you look at this little schematic here, We have a water line that say it's running underneath the street schematically. There's some connection out there. It could be a lead gooseneck, it could be copper, it could be, you don't know what it is, but that's what we're supposed to find. We come to the curb, and I don't know if you can, I won't show it. But there's either two places to put a meter pit. Typically, you can put the meter pit right between the curb or by the sidewalk, or you can put it all the way in the house. So in these, the yellow box identifies where the meter, the little M, the yellow box, the M is. That tells you where the meter could be located. By our ordinance, by what the city of McCook has followed, and by our ordinance, you guys are responsible from the shut-off, or the curb stop, or the meter pit, toward the main. That is your responsibility. That's part of your system. Then everything from that point on is the homeowners. So, there you go. This is our ordinance, this is what we follow. These vary by community. There's some that go from the main all the way out is homeowner's responsibility. But the regulation that came out said this is how they're gonna define it. If you wanna use our money and you want to replace the lead service line, it's based on where that meter is located and how far you have to go on private property. Because you have to replace it if you want to be eligible for the funding. So this shows an example. You have the water main in the street, you have a curb stop. By us, we would stop probably the curb stop with a meter right by the sidewalk, and that would be our end of our responsibility, and that's all we have to replace. If you use this funding, then if the meter is in the house, you have to go all the way into the home, to the meter, and either install a valve or put a valve at the meter. That's where you stop. So you're going across their private property into the house to fix it. Now, if that line from the curb stop or whatever's in the street into the home is plastic, we know it's PVC, we figure that out, we look inside the home. If we can identify that it's plastic or something that's not lead, not galvanized downstream of lead, or something of those matters, then we don't have to go there. If it's been replaced by the homeowner before, you don't have to touch it, and that still is eligible cost. But if that is galvanized or lead, or if it's downstream of lead, then we have to replace it into the home. If the meter's at the curb stop, so the meter's out there by the street, and it's lead all the way we think into the home, or it's galvanized, because the meter's in the street, we can stop right outside the foundation. You don't have to actually go in. So that was one of the rule changes and one of the clarifications of the rule is you can stop at the foundation and not have to go into the residence. So you can see this causes some real issues, not only from us, but from funding. We're replacing lines that are one, not on our property, and two, that we don't own by ordinance. And this is the big rub. So, we had the first deadline we had is by October 16, 2024, we had to perform an inventory. We had to take that inventory and say, okay, we think we know what's either at the main, at the curb stop if we've ever dug it up. And then we asked people what's in your home, and we could identify in the home what was there. Because in order to properly identify this, you have 2 points you have to verify. Wherever that curb stop is out, kind of by the curb, so wherever that is, if we know what each pipe is on each side, we can identify that, and we can identify what's in the house. We believe it should be the same between those two, so we know what's from the curb stop in the house, and whether that was lead or non-lead, whatever it was, we try to identify that. And then what we had on our side, from our main to that curb stop. And we had to list those requirements and send that list in by October 16, 24. And if you did not know, you had to write unknown. And as far as EPA is concerned, if it's unknown, it's lead. So every 3 years, we get to update this inventory. These guys, they're gonna come back every year and figure out, what can we do? So the only way to do it is to dig it up. And that's one of the main ways is you go out and you back it up and you look at it and say, I know what's here now, I know what's here by the foundation, or I go into the house and look at it, but maybe there's cabinets in front of it or whatever, but somehow you have to identify that. And every 3 years, we're supposed to update that. So right now what we have is the city has, with this inventory, the original one is out on your webpage. The webpage is listed there, it is on your webpage. And it lists your address and it lists whether we identified your unknown or we know you have lead or we know you don't have lead. So those are actually out there and that was part of the requirements. We need to continue to verify. So one thing is you have to know all these things because in 10 years, 10 to 13, you have to have them all replaced. That is part of the regulation. By 2037, they have to be replaced. Whether you use this funding or not, somebody's gonna be responsible for this. So, we have to continue to look at it, and there's mechanical inventories, you have to go out and physically back out and look at it. And that's the problem that we're at right now is, if you think about it, every community in the United States has to do this, if you don't know. Now, a lot of the houses, if they were built in the 90s or 2000s or whatever, you know, there was no lead, we know those are clean. But there are several that we don't know. So we have to come up with ideas on how to verify what we have and what we don't have. So this is just a picture of one, you're backing out, and you're looking at the main, and you're seeing what's actually on your, connected to your line, and what the service is it leaves the main. And again, you notice there is concrete cut. They had to cut underneath the street. This is not a cheap option. Now, you could go right behind back a curb. This one they knew was lead, so we knew we had to replace it. But you could go behind back a curb and back it out right as soon as you can and assume that from that point to the main is the same. But it gives you that one point, then you have to go back to the home and see what's going in the home. So there's only 3 or 4 things that you can classify this: lead, galvanized required replacement. So you have galvanized, and we know there's lead upstream that we could do it. It's non-lead. It's plastic, it's copper, or it's unknown. And again, if it's unknown, EPA considers that lead. One of the other arguments that's been going around is, okay, so we have a lead rule now, we're doing all this for lead, we get it, but what about copper? You're gonna come back in 10 years and tell us that copper leaches, and now we have a copper issue, so what do we replace? So there's been some communities that have been a copper community forever, and they're starting to go PVC. Well, what if PVC leaches polyvinyl chloride, or what do we have those issues? So this has opened up a whole can of worms. And again, it's made a lot of people really upset. So again, if you're just listening general, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this, but there was an inventory. We asked people, we looked in homes, we've asked people about their homes, what their plumbing is coming into their home. The main types are lead, copper, galvanized, steel, and plastic. Those are the ones you mainly see. I think the water department actually has a board down there with all these screwed into a board that tells you what it is, and you can scratch on it and see it. And you can tell if anybody had a question about what really is mine, you can look at this board and say, okay. Because plastic can be white, as shown here, it can be black, it can be blue. It can be any amount of colors, but you know it's plastic. So there's some tests, you know, does it scratch, does it get shiny? Is it lead? If it scratches, it's dull and it becomes shiny. It's either lead or it's galvanized, but does a magnet stick to it? A magnet won't stick to anything if it's copper, or if it's lead, won't attach. So there's some ways to identify it, but that's just part of the inventory that we started with. So what we really want to talk about tonight is McCook. So you have this background now, so here's where we're at. The city forces here have actually verified about 600 services. They weren't sure what they were, and they've actually excavated, mechanically found out, did their research, and they know at least about 600 of them what they are. We have potentially 500 of these services that we believe are lead or are unknown. We have not been able to excavate them or look at them, and they're probably lead or there's a potential they're lead. So the funding, this funding that we're talking about, the drinking water SRF funding, it's good till 2034. It has to be spent by then. The state has to spend it. And again, the rule says they have to be placed by 2037, so there's a few years in there that aren't covered, and we know we're gonna be short of money. But some communities have 2 or 3 lines. We potentially have 500. And the city doesn't have the forces in order to do that, so the thing is, the city's looking at using contractors to do this workload, if we can. We're trying to get it in a 5 or 10 year funding program, you know, maybe work into 5 years, do 100 a year, or something like that, if we wanna go down this route. That way we're done before the deadline and we can secure the money. With this, it's voluntary. Right now, you have to have them done by 37, but you're not required to use this money. So it is a first come, first serve. You can voluntarily do it, but if you do it, again, you have to go all the way to the home if it's bad. Now, we're gonna talk about a few things here, I'll just throw these out, but there is some stipulations to that. So the homeowner says, you're not coming on my property. They have that right. They have to tell you that 3 times, and then you don't have to replace that line. You have to inventory it, tell them it's lead, whatever it is, but you don't have to do it. So that one goes away. If they sell the house, if something happens, it turns over, then you have to start your three-time rule again, your 3 strikes. So you have to come in and say, do you want us to replace this lead service line? Now, at that point in time, there probably won't be money for that. But that's a decision the homeowner can make. And they can tell you. You can also, there also has been some arguments that says, if I have to do it, you can make the homeowner do it. But that's not what this program is for. This program is to help them replace it if it's lead because it's a health issue. That's how the state of Nebraska has put this to us. So, again, the bottom one that's in red is the regulatory replacement says by 2037, all have to be replaced. We have to make sure we've identified and replaced the lead service lines. Now, between now and then, is the regulation change? Absolutely. Will it? I don't know. Right now, it's in effect, and this is the rule that we have. So in order to make sure that we get this word out, this is one of the things we want to do tonight. Pat wanted us to come down and talk about it, so that way everybody could hear it. I know that if you've been to some of the league meetings and stuff, they talked about it. We'll do another one of rural water in Nebraska, in Kearney, for Nebraska Rural Water at the March meeting in a couple weeks. But one of the things we had to do when we inventoried all these that was due in the 16th and 24, we had to mail letters to everybody that said, we know you have lead, that was one letter, and we've identified it, you're on the list. We had to mail a letter that said, we don't know what you have, you're unknown, so here's another letter that we have to mail to you. So there was a certain amount that we had to do all these mailings. So it's been out there, and that was a requirement of this rule. So if anybody got letters, that's what this was all about. It was the start of this wonderful project. You guys, again, if you don't know for sure, if you didn't know that letter, if somebody threw it away, you can go online and you can look at it. We've got a few communities that are starting this. Like I said, there's $93 million that's been allocated to start this program. There's some communities that are ahead of the game. They've been replacing these mains. They're replacing these lines. Some of them replacing mains with lines. But we've been doing open houses for those, kind of like this. When you get to an area, like let's say McCook says, I want to replace 100 of these next year. We would probably identify those 100 people once we have plans and a contractor hired and ask them to come to a public hearing and say, here's what we're doing. We need you to sign this waiver because we're going on your property and let us, or you need to tell us no, but here's what we want to do. So that's one of the things that we've been really successful with, I guess, that's worked for a lot of these communities. So I think that's an important part of it, that just everybody's involved and knows what they are, and they know that we're coming on your land to do this if we find it. Now again, we could excavate it up and we say, hey, you have plastic, I don't need to go on your property. We just need to fix it for our need. So, the other thing is the utility department's gonna start developing procedures to address calls. Because it's gonna heat up, we're gonna have questions. You may have questions after this presentation tonight, so that way we'll have a way to address those. I think everybody should just call Pat.
On myself.
Here's his number.
Tell you my address.
But really, the biggest thing is we have to have required authorization probably to protect the city. You have to, one, make sure that they want you undercover to replace it, and two, we have to have a form that says, hey, here's what we're gonna do. So, the good thing about this is, of all the things about it, if you wanna look at the good thing is, if you borrow money from the SRF to do this, 60% of it's loan forgiveness, it's a grant. So whatever you borrow, 60% of that is gonna be a grant. It will not cost you anything if that's 60%. I mean, 40% of that is yours. So, lead service line inventory, so it's mechanical inventory, where you go out and back it and do it, it will give you an extra 10% grant to do that investigation. So if you think about it, but they will only give you 10% grant of what you borrow for this, the whole amount. So if you borrowed $1 million, you get $100,000 to do investigation, but they cap it at that. That's the max that you can get. The interest rate for this loan is 0%. They will not charge you any interest, and it's good for 30 years. You can do a 30-year term. You can do less if you want, but you can do a 30-year term as the max. So, if, let's say we have all 500 services, just worst case scenario, if they're $5,000 a service to replace them, that's $2.5 million. It's gonna cost each user here about $1 to $1.10 per person on your monthly water rate to pay this back, even accounting for the grant and the loan. So this gives you an idea. If they're under pavement all the way there and you have $10,000 of service, it doubles, $700, couple bucks. So there is a cost to this. And we're gonna try and spread it out, obviously, if you do it, you spread it out over several years, so we don't have to have that all at once, but that is the decision I think that council has to make and discuss of what you guys wanna do. Steve McNulty, who is running this program for drinking water SRF, wanted us to prep you for this. Kind of hinted the path that we should come talk to the council first, and then he will actually come and present the funding if you guys want him to come. So that'll be your part 2 of this, if you want to proceed. So he was willing to do that. He had a short agenda and I made it long, sorry. So if you guys have any questions, like I said, we try to answer what we can, but
Didn't council go to Kearney to look at the machine? Yeah, wasn't able to go, the fall.
yeah.
So we wouldn't be able to do something like that unless we staffed up, is that correct?
Pretty much. We basically have 3 guys,
Right,
so it's almost impossible
if we,
with the amount. I mean,
but with that, the contractor probably they have to make money too, right? I mean, so it's gonna be quite a bit more expensive if we did it that way, so. I didn't know if we ran any calculations of hiring 3 people for 5 years and having a machine.
we haven't, no.
Yeah, that was just a question.
No, we haven't even really got down to the nuts and bolts of how many we try to get done in a year. I mean,
Yeah.
our whole plan here was trying to get the inventory done, but after talking to Steve, sounds like we have some known, and might be better just to pull the trigger on the funding and do the ones we know, and then keep moving down the line as we're inventorying. And the guys will always continue to do what inventory they can, but they're almost, I mean, they're fixing, especially summertime, it's leaks all the time is what they're doing, so that's where all our time's tied up.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, so
you guys.
It's kinda hard.
I've had my line replaced. I know that it's poly, but I don't know the service from there either.
Yeah.
And then you guys have replaced my business line as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so, and there's some like, that are gonna be on upcoming projects, but, like Norris Avenue, we've talked about doing, but that's a huge project. Get rid of a lot of lead lines, but it's also, I can't remember what that was on need survey, what was it?
$2 million.
$2 million? To replace the main, yeah, it would replace the main, but get rid of a lot of lead services too.
But this funding would only cover
Yep.
the service line
Services.
portion, where that wouldn't cover the main line portion of that. We'd somehow have to separate
Yeah,
that.
there's a lot of
I just
ins and outs
know
to
you
it.
guys are always busy. And,
What would that cost a citizen to do it?
So we just did some in Cozad, on a street in Cozad, and we did 30 of them up and down about 4 blocks. And it was $3,000 to $5,000. And we bid them separately because this guy has a landscape, this guy has a retaining wall, and do you have to go in or not, So they vary, but they're $3,000 to $5,000 for sure. I mean, I would say that's a pretty good number. The ones that, like, the first ones, City of Kearney's been doing these, as you mentioned, on their own forces, and they've been averaging $6,000 to $8,000 a service. But they're also putting in new curb stops, they're doing lots of things, they're putting in meter pits, maybe if they thought the meter was bad, they'll put the pit out in the street, and so they've been doing other things also, and this will cover all that. But
Kearney did hire people though.
they
right?
did, they hired 5 people, they
Yeah.
have a crew, that's all they do in the summer. So they try to get 200 done a year.
Any other questions? Pat? you
So,
have anything to
okay,
add?
I'm sorry.
What's it?
Go ahead.
Then we apply for the money, right? Okay, what happens then if we're short? We go back again and apply for more money then?
I think so, yeah.
Is that how it works, Chris, then?
Yes, as long as there's money there, as long as there's money remaining, you can ask for more money. Now, they will loan you the money, but you will lose on the 60-40. That's only good for the first 160 million. Now, some states, we started out at 143 million for Nebraska. And there's some states that said, we have very little lead lines in our state. And so they took some of the money, they passed it back. And so Nebraska's picked some of that up, because we can show that demand. We've been showing that we have at least 250 million in need, and we only have 160,000 now. So if anybody else turns back money, we're trying to get that as a state, and trying to keep it coming to our coffers, but we don't know what that's gonna be. Right now, we know we have 160 million and 93 of it is allocated.
On the conference call we had with Steve, he recommended being conservative or actually worst case scenario. And then if you have fewer, that money would then
Go back to the pot.
But you would have milestones you'd have to meet during that 10-year timeframe. You'd have to have so much done before you.
So make sure it's not sitting there and somebody else can't use it.
But he did recommend being conservative or worst case scenario when you make your application.
So what is the estimated cost of what it would be to do those 600?
Well, you did 500 and 5,000, it's 2.5 million.
And that 500 is not, I mean,
That's low.
those 600 we did, it's right around 600, I don't know if it's right on the, but that was in the old part of McCook. So we did find quite a bit of lead. I'd have to tally them up. I thought it was over 200 that were lead already. So as you move out, it just gets less and less. But you still have to do that potholing, or you still have to
Right,
be able to
to be
prove
able
what
to
it
see,
is.
right, and that's, we have to, I assume have to document all that.
Yeah.
Yes,
To be able to-
there's,
And that's separate, and that'd be a separate.
Yeah, that's a whole, yeah.
Pothole cost.
Cause then you
It goes
gotta,
up to 10%.
you gotta dig it up and then replace concrete and all that, yeah, that's, yeah.
So what do you need from us tonight?
This is just a discussion tonight. Just wanted to have a presentation.
You
We'll come back.
mentioned that if we wanted this gentleman to come talk to us about financing, he would do so,
yes.
so we kinda sorta have to make a decision.
Yeah, we'll bring, I mean, if you're okay, we'll bring him back, so that way he can give a presentation as well.
I think
So-
we're pretty much compelled to. We got options, we gotta know what we got.
So this is, another situation where, you either get a federal or a state unfunded Band-Aid. But the fact that there is loan forgiveness tied into this as well as, 0% interest, this is our best option moving forward, because it's got to be done. There are some communities that are burying their heads in the sand, hoping it's not gonna be a requirement, but I don't think that's probably the correct approach to take.
You're correct.
Chris, are there companies out there that specialize then in doing this kind of work?
You know, it's nothing special than any other water main project. I mean, we replace services and water mains all the time with all these contractors.
Right.
Only difference is you have to document it. There is actually a form, you go to lead service line replacement, if you want the money, they have a 2-page form, you get a picture before, a picture after showing that you did it, and then document what the address is and flip. And that's all you really have to do differently than just a standard water job.
So how would we do this, Pat? Would we go out and hire, contract it out?
Yeah, we'd probably have to bid,
Put
I
out-
assume we'd have to bid it out.
Put out bids?
If we pick a certain number, a picture of, that we're gonna do in a year, we bid it, and then whoever we get, they would just kinda do it on their own schedule. Like Chris said, we'd meet with, if we're gonna do a 2-block area, we would try to meet with all those people, tell them how it works, sign waivers, do all that. Yeah, we'll do as much as we can in-house, but it's definitely gonna take a contractor.
And as we do like water project, like the West Fifth project, we documented, as we reconnected those, we documented, so for that inventory, we know what those services are on projects we've done recently.
Oh, when we did West Fifth,
West
up to the
So we,
senior center?
yeah, it's just a small fraction of them, but, I mean, that's kinda how we've been starting out, trying to get that inventory done. South Street, I already have, we have, when we did South Street project, we also documented.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, Dave, thank you
Yes.
very much.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to approve the proclamation designating the month of March 2026 as Problem Gambling Awareness Month and authorize the mayor to sign.
So moved.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor vote yes, opposed nay.
I vote cast yea, no votes cast nay. That's just a miracle.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and it's included in one motion. Any item listed on the consent agenda may, by the request of any single council member or public in attendance, be considered as a separate item under the regular agenda. Council?
Nothing.
Staff? Public? Okay. All those in favor?
On the consent agenda, I make a motion that we accept items A, B, C, D.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, vote yea, opposed nay.
My vote's cast yea, no votes cast nay.
Okay, we've got updates regarding the youth sports complex project.
We do. Obviously, I'm hoping that everybody's had a chance to see the progress that's been made out there at the sports complex over the past 2 weeks. Last week, we got a very pleasant surprise. The Mammoth crew had notified us that because of some of the weather that the eastern side of the state was experiencing, we were set in line to go ahead and start receiving turf, and the turf was gonna be laid, which it has, and it's moving at a breakneck speed. That northeast fourplex baseball field has been turfed completely. They're working over on the southeast side right now. They're hoping they might be able to actually get one more done. It just kind of depends on scheduling right now. It sounds like there may be a possibility that we can get one more of the fourplex fields done here in fairly short order. But it's really neat. Our plan is to go ahead and schedule a time for people in McCook on March 11th at 4 o'clock. Come out and take a look at the field so that way they can get a feel for what's going on out there. It's really, I don't know, changes the perspective once you start seeing a little bit of color out there. That green really pops. The infield look fantastic, and it's just really exciting. We're working on a number of different grants right now. We're working on 4 o'clock. Yeah, 4 o'clock. And
Think it's gonna roll in the turf?
we're not gonna do that quite yet.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, so we'll probably do a big blow up with the Chamber of Commerce when we get to the championship baseball field. But we wanna give people a chance to go out and take a look at it, because it really is neat.
And that's meet over by Stanley?
Yeah, so it'll be on the south side of Nebraska Public Power District. We'll come up with a game plan as far as getting people to and from. And then, working on a number of grants, working on an AARP grant. It's due March 4th. We're looking at trying to add some shade structures. One of the things that we'll be asking for the council to consider is the use of community betterment funds for the shade structures. Obviously, it's going to be an expense, but we want to make sure that we've got those types of amenities available, just because I think that it's going to make the experience a lot more pleasurable for the people that are there and to have some shade. Also working on kind of identifying the next steps in grants and looking at some state opportunities, in particular the NDWEE grant application for turf. Just kind of going through, we had a good conversation with Eric Mulholland today to make sure that we are staying within the criteria for qualification. I think that we're still sitting in the right spot, so we'll be working on that here in the near future. That's one of those grants that we've looked at in the past, but really we need to get the turf laid before we're actually able to apply. So, so that'll be coming up. Like I said, we mentioned, we met with Eric Mulholland and Jason from Mammoth today to discuss water out at the site. On the $5.5 million infrastructure build out, the one part of that project that we aren't going to be able to touch is the residential areas. That requires us to look at how we're gonna get water to the east side of the park. And so our plan is to run a temporary line that we'll be able to cap as we start moving forward with the residential development. That'll all be developed through improvement districts. exception of sewer. Sewer is included with that, first step of the project. So, but we appreciated having Chris and David as a part of that conversation too. They were there, and kind of helped assist with that. I don't want to go into too many details. We did receive notice of a donation. I'll bring more information to the council. I want to make sure that the entity that is making the donation is present, so that way it can be a big surprise for everyone. And it's exciting to have local entities who want to participate, want to be a part of the project. So we'll bring that here at a future council meeting. But we're still working hard trying to reach out to our local philanthropic organizations and also other granting agencies, so that way we can make sure that we keep the obligations of the citizens down to a minimum. We want to make sure we have as many grant fundraising options available. We're gonna continue to keep on working those options. So, Tara or Kyle, anything that I didn't touch on that you can think of?
No, they were actually spreading the rubber pellets out on the northeast field today, so that'll be the last step for completion of that particular field.
So March 11th, we're gonna have a kickball tournament, is that?
Yeah, start stretching now.
Council versus department heads.
We need controls.
Hey, anything else?
No.
Hey, council comments. I just want to thank you, Tara, and the staff for all the hard work you guys are doing to get us grants. These are wonderful, and this is bringing money back into our community that other communities could take advantage of. So, thank you, because I know you guys are putting in a lot of hours.
We all are, yes, thank
I
you.
know you are. Hey, anything else? Okay, the meeting is adjourned at 6:12 p.m.